So the numbers have not been discussed, but there have been various reports. Perhaps Ambassador Romualdez, you could help us. There are reports that upwards of 1,000 eligible Afghan nationals per month would be sent, maybe 1,005 to 2,000 per batch, reaching a total of 30 to 50,000 Afghan nationals to arrive in the Philippines under this effort. Is that correct, Ambassador Romualdez?
Yes, Madam Chair. That is what they were telling us, that they would like to see if they can bring in at least 1,000 per batch. However, I just want to point out that it is really completely
Does
up
it
to
mean
us.
per batch per month? And the second batch will not come in until the first batch of 1,000 has departed and been processed to go to the United States? Or will there be 30 to 50,000 total Afghans in the Philippines at one time?
It's completely up to us on how we want to proceed with this request. We can have it 1,000 each time, and they will be repatriated to the United States once they receive their SIVs, or they will bring in perhaps 1 or 2,000. It depends on the kind of boarding or lodging that they will provide, which all of these they will be at their expense.
Yes, thank you. I would like to call on Senator Coco Pimentel, who has been raising his hand.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. May I ask, where are these potential Afghan refugees right now?
Ambassador Romualdez.
Yes, from the way I understand it, they are currently located either still in Afghanistan, perhaps some of the family members of this people who worked in the United States with the United States government, but the last conversation I had with the State Department is that some of them are in Pakistan at the moment.
So thank you for that point of information, Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator Tolentino, please.
Ambassador Romualdez, a few questions. If you're willing to answer some. Aside from the United States, there are existing similar SIV programs right now. We have one in Canada, the Special Immigration Measure. We have one in Germany, also applicable to the Afghans. The United Kingdom has the Afghan Relocations and Assistance Policy, or ARAP. Australia has a program known as the Afghan Locally Engaged Employees, or LEEE. Aside from the United States, were there requests coming from the other countries I mentioned a while ago?
Not to us, not that I know of.
But you are aware of the several programs I mentioned a while ago?
Yes, they pointed it out to us that there are programs of other countries similar to what they were requesting.
And if you're familiar with these programs, these are short-term, temporary programs that would entail the processing of Afghans displaced prior to their relocation, for instance, to Australia, United Kingdom, Germany, Canada. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct, Senator.
So ang mangyayari po sa atin, temporary site controlled by the Philippines, as mentioned by Secretary Manalo, perhaps a site with proper security measures, and perhaps a site funded by the United States. And is the United Nations involved, Mr. Ambassador?
I'm not sure. Perhaps Secretary Manalo could. I don't think the United Nations is involved in this.
Madam Chair, the reason why I'm mentioning this is that as we speak, there are 29 to 33 Filipinos still in Kabul right now, working for various NGOs. We have, correct me if I'm wrong, Secretary Manalo, we have accepted a similar number of Syrian refugees. And during the past decades, we accepted several East Timor refugees. And if hindi pa ako buhay, during the time of President Quezon, syempre po, libo-libo po yung Russian Jews. So the question of distance probably is inapplicable right now. And during the time of President Marcos, we have the South Vietnamese being stationed temporarily in Palawan. So, Mr. Ambassador, kung sakali pong pumunta rito yung Afghans, ang kinakatakutan po kasi ng marami, parang nagkaroon ng stereotyping na, suicide bombers ito. Ito po ba mga edukado? Ito po ba mga kababaihan? Ito po ba binubuo ng pamilya na naiwan? Hindi po ito yung mga nakasabit sa eroplano. Ito po yung naiwan doon dahil nagtrabaho sa mga embassies. Tama po ba?
Tama, tama. Hindi, all of them, lahat sila nagtrabaho for the US government in one way or the other. At saka yung kanilang mga pamilya. Kaya it's anywhere between 50 to 60,000 that are still being processed for repatriation to the United
And you're
States.
perhaps aware, Mr. Ambassador, that we are a signatory to countless international agreements
Yes.
that should allow us to accept these Afghans
Yes.
in our soil. Tama po ba
Yeah,
yun?
that's correct, Senator.
And are you aware of this? I hope my pronunciation is right. I haven't been to France yet, Madam Chair. Refoulement would mean the return of a refugee to her former state against his will, where he will be more threatened by, in this case, the Taliban. So, pag yung nakarating po sa atin, nagdili-dali tayo, pinabalik, marami ho tayong violation. Tama po ba yan, Ambassador?
Yan, hindi ko sigurado yan. Pero ang alam ko lang, the United States government has assured us that whoever that we will allow to come into the Philippines for processing, they will take care of them completely. In other words, if they are for some reason denied the SIV that the processing will take place, they will be immediately sent to another or a third country.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. One last point, Madam Chair. Secretary Manalo, correct me if I'm wrong. My data was prepared several weeks ago. More than 90,000 Afghans have been resettled across the United States over the past 20 months. More than 11,000 SIVs were issued to Afghans between October 2021 and September 2022, according to official figures. Tama po ba yan?
I cannot confirm, Mr. Senator.
Yes. Kung sakaling yung tama yung binabanggit nyo na 50,000, 1,000, mapapasama tayo rito sa figures na to. Kung dito ipoprocess to. At the rate they're going, 11,000, halos isang taon, 90,000 ang relocate. May posibilidad ba ho, Mr. Ambassador, na bumagal dahil nandito, natambak sa atin? Meron ba hong ganong posibilidad?
Well,
O naguluhan na kayo sa tanong ko?
Hindi, nasa sa atin na yun, Senator, na kung ilan ang gusto natin. Pero ang request nila is anywhere between 1,000 to 1,500 per batch. Ipoprocess nila, then they will go to the United States. Kung gusto natin less, pwede rin. Ang tinatanong na sa atin is exactly yung kanilang tinatanong o rini-request sa atin, what is it that we will be able to get back to them that we can accept? In other words, not all of this 30,000 or whatever it is they intend to process will come to the Philippines, and then they will be here and they will wait for their processing. It will be by batches.
Definitely,
And
Mr.
it's
Ambassador.
completely up to us.
Mr. Ambassador, narami ho nakikinig ngayon. Definitely, the Philippines will not be the final destination of these refugees.
Yes, that is absolutely.
Temporary lang po sila dito. Ang kinakatakutan ng marami ay baka malahukan ng mga terrorist. Kaya na-elevate na sa Anti-Terrorism Council, etc., etc. Naniniwala po kayo, Mr. Ambassador, na ito pong pinag-uusapan natin ay pangamba na may posibilidad na hindi naman dapat mangyari kasi na-vet na po yun bago dalhin dito.
Correct. Yan ang tama, Senator. Kaya nga, lahat ng ating mga security agencies ay tinatanong ng DFA dahil they also will have to give their comments kung anong tingin nila. Pero yan ang sabi sa atin ng mga Amerikano na they will be vetted first, they will be double-checked before they come to the Philippines, and then again through processing.
Madam Chair, if I may be allowed to express my personal sentiment, I don't see anything wrong here. Sa tingin ko po, kung talagang na-vet ito, nagkaroon lang ng konting hype, stereotyping, bordering on discrimination. Na siguro naman, mabubuting tao yung iba. Yung mga FW po natin, nasa iba't ibang bansa, tinatanggap naman po yun. Kasasabi ko lang, merong 33 na Filipinos pa sa Kabul. So siguro kung masasala po ito, wala tayong gastos, nasa secured na lugar, nasa isang isla. I think, Madam Chair, we have abided and complied fully with all our international humanitarian commitments, including the possible erasure of what they term as, quote-unquote, human rights records of our country. Malinis na ho tayo dito. We're getting here with clean hands. Tinulungan po natin yung mga tao na wala namang mga
Okay.
kasalanan. Details will be laid down. But yun lang po yung sentiments ko, Madam Chair. But
Yes,
ang mali lang po dito siguro, yung proseso, shrouded in non-transparency manner, not revealed to the country, not full explained, siguro DFA ang dapat managot yan, pero yung mga Afghans, wala po silang kasalanan. Salamat po, Madam Chair.
Maraming salamat, Senator Tolentino. Ngunit ang ating tinatanong ngayon, kung bakit ipapadala ng Amerika ang kanilang mga dating empleyado sa ating bansa. Wala naman tayong kinalaman dito. Hindi ba nila tayo binigyan ng dahilan? What reason was given by the U.S. for making the aforementioned request, if any? Ambassador Romualdez, Secretary Manalo, and as mentioned by Senator Tolentino, are they in fact refugees? What is the understanding of the DOJ, the DFA, and the BI of the term refugee? Ambassador Romualdez has explicitly stated these are not refugees. They are former Afghan employees of the U.S. government. I need clarification po. Secretary Manalo, Ambassador Romualdez, please respond and lend us light here. Secretary Teodoro is shaking his head. Would you like to both in, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Your Honor. Technically, they're not refugees because basically they're not displaced. They're in their homeland right now. They have not applied for political asylum or any other thing. They're not on extraterritorial jurisdiction. My understanding is that their visas for the United States shall be processed within this country because of administrative difficulties of the U.S. government, because of their bureaucracy in conducting any processing, but they are not refugees as of this time. They may become refugees
That is
if
correct.
their visas are denied
Denied.
and they are not
And they're not-
repatriated.
Allowed to be repatriated.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes, I'm in full agreement. I think they are not refugees, as rightly pointed out by Ambassador Babes Romualdez. Is that correct, Ambassador? Was your statement regarding the fact that these are not refugees we are speaking of, and there is no doubt that the Philippines upholds and takes pride in our history of giving succor and refuge to international refugees. Ambassador Romualdez, please. These are not refugees.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, absolutely correct, Madam Chair. They are not refugees. They are employees or former employees of the U.S. government, and they're asking us if we could help them in processing them, precisely as pointed out by Secretary Teodoro, that it is a matter of administrative in nature.
Thank you. That being the case, I get affirmation as well from DFA Legal that they are not refugees. That is correct? Okay, if that is the status of these individuals, what is the basis, therefore, of the executive branch of government for admitting them into the Philippines under Section 47 of Commonwealth Act 613 on the power of the President to admit aliens for humanitarian reasons, expressly referring only to refugees? Yes, Secretary Manalo, please. What is the basis, since they clearly are not refugees, they cannot be accommodated under Section 47 of the Commonwealth Act?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In fact, the notion as we understood it from the concept note of the United States is there's no intention to leave them here in the Philippines. They're only going to use the Philippines as a temporary site for their processing for their eventual trip to the United States, provided they pass all the vetting. And the U.S. In our talks has also assured us, if in case we agree, that they would ensure that none of the SIV applicants would be left behind, nor have the option to consider remaining in the Philippines to seek refugee status. So this would only be, in effect, a temporary situation. And if I could just...
Given the extraordinary circumstances, and we appreciate the emergency concern, the worry is, what shall be their status while they remain in the Philippines? Will they be non-immigrants or immigrants? What kind of Philippine visa will they be given? Under what treaty will their rights and obligations be governed? The problem is that the special immigrants visa has been promised in 2 weeks. The reality is that we are also aware that they could come as late as 59 days. In the United States, 77,000 continue to wait for their visas for periods longer than 4 years. May we have clarity on their status while they remain in the Philippines?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In this case, the Afghan nationals who would be coming here are, in fact, all Afghan nationals are listed as Category A. In other words, restricted nationals who are required to apply for a visa in the Philippines. And normally we would give them up to 30 to 59 days.
So sorry, what will they be again? Non-immigrant, immigrant?
Non-immigrant.
So non-immigrant. So klaro yan, non-immigrant.
Category
Okay.
A, yeah.
And under which treaty are we governing the rights and obligations? Non-immigrant sa ilalim ng alin?
Okay, I'll have to consult on that, Madam Chair. Which treaty?
Madam Chair, we had a meeting
Yes, Secretary.
on Monday
Oo.
with the undersecretaries of the DOJ and Undersecretary Lazaro and Undersecretary Vasquez. Actually, the major problem here really is an immigration problem and a legal problem. And so I think if the DOJ is already prepared, because they still have to come out, we have requested them finally for an opinion on the potential status of these people and the problems in case, or the way forward in case their SIVs are denied. To date, Madam Chair, we are still waiting for the opinion. It was only formalized last week that the DFA shall be the lead agency in our conference, person-to-person conference. And we are very sensitive to the issues raised by the chairperson that this not being per se a humanitarian issue, it could turn into a humanitarian issue in case the obligations of the other party are not complied with. Therefore, this was raised to us by the DOJ.
Thank you very much. Yes, we're very pleased, and truly the differences are glaring between refugees, non-immigrants, and immigrants insofar as regulations, restrictions, and their freedom of movement is concerned. So what would be off the top of our heads the status if they were non-immigrants? They would be granted freedom of mobility while they are waiting, as they are in the National Convention Center in Arlington, Virginia, as we're well aware. or as non-immigrants? Will they be confined to a single space, apparently in New Clark City? Is that the consideration? What other distinctions do you think are important? I believe that the NBI is deeply concerned about the security permutations in as much as they would impact on our own public safety.
Madam Chair, if I may be
Yes,
permitted
Secretary, please.
to answer, even the housing is still under consideration. We also do not want them to be housed as if they were detainees, which is the furthest thing from the image we want to portray. And keeping them for an extended period of time within a confined environment, particularly with their children involved, will not only complicate their physical liberty, but the end state of their mental health and wellness too. That is why, Madam
There's also, Secretary, sorry to butt in, but actually, there's also the consideration that they'll be coming back and forth to apply for their special immigrant visa from New Clark City and all the provinces involved, going towards the U.S. Embassy in Metro Manila. Is that our understanding?
Madam Chair, insofar
Because that
as
is
the-
what is stated so far in the brief.
No, Madam Chair. As far as the informal discussions between us last week is that all the services from the processing to their medical care shall be done on site.
This is not medical care. I think this has to do with their visa application.
Even then, Madam Chair, the U.S. Embassy has to place extension services.
Parang iba yung
In
sinabi
the
ng
site.
DFA. Ang sabi ng DFA, mag-a-apply pa sila sa consular offices ng US Embassy. Wala dun sa Clark.
Madam-
Pabalik-balik sila. Kaya yung sinasabing confined to a certain space, hindi realidad yun. Yes, Secretary
But I clarify.
Manalo. Although NBI is recommending, according to their briefer, I hope I quote you right, na sana magpadala ng visa, special visa officer na lamang dun sa lugar, imbes na ganito. Yes, Secretary Manalo, please.
Yes, Madam Chair, when we referred to the U.S. Embassy, et cetera, here, that is the U.S. proposal. And we still have to react to that. And I think Secretary Teodoro, after we talked, felt that we feel perhaps that this should not be the arrangement. But the U.S. proposal, at least in their concept note in discussions, was that the applicants would visit the U.S. Embassy here in Manila for a visa interview, and then an embassy-identified hospital for medical evaluation for the actual issuance of U.S. visa. That is the U.S. suggestion.
Yes, that's the American
We
suggestion.
are
As,
not necessarily in agreement with that.
I understand. The reason, of course, is that until October of last year, in the National Convention Center of Virginia, where they were actually being processed, they could leave the facility at any time, were not considered prisoners by any means, and could therefore have freedom of mobility. Is that the same thing we're suggesting? And have we consulted New Clark City, Tarlac, for example, Pampanga, Subic, and the rest of the ramparts? Yes, Secretary Teodoro, please.
Madam Chair, we have not proceeded to that extent as far as I know. And if there will be, insofar as the Department of Defense and perhaps even our fellow security sector officials, the least amount of area they can travel from and to would be naturally physically better for us. Now, the optics of this may be different, but the least amount of travel. However, we have not discussed in thorough detail a definite site where this will be. And we definitely have to consult with the officials involved in the areas, just like we have when we apply for an ECC, for that matter, Madam Chair.
Yes, I'm just curious why there's been a change of heart. I mean, in the past, we're aware that following the withdrawal of the United States from Kabul, many Afghans were processed in the United States. Bakit bilang nabago They used to house the Afghan evacuees in facilities within the U.S., like I said, the National Conference Center in Virginia. And then in September 2022, there appears to have become a new strategy where the Afghans arriving in the U.S. no longer will be temporarily housed in safe haven facilities in the U.S. What is the reason? Maybe Ambassador Romualdez, you can tell us what is the reason for the change in strategy of the United States. Bakit ayaw na nila tanggapin yung mga Afghan doon sa National Convention sa Arlington? Napakarain na nung dumaan doon. Ba't biglang nagbago? At biglang tayo na ang kinakatukan?
Well, actually, they're really, the fact is that there are quite a number of them. And as you said, they have that here in Virginia. Pero the main reason why they're also asking other countries, we're not the only one, by the way. There are other countries. I think Germany is also being asked. They also had a processing center in Qatar, and from what I understand, also in Albania. Is because there's just so many of them that they would like to be able to do it quickly as possible, because they have a timeline, I suppose, and that's the reason why we're being asked as an ally of the United States. We are one of a number of countries that they have requested if they could use it. They use the country for the processing of these Afghan nationals that work with the United States government.
Yes, Ambassador, you say there are just too many Afghans. We're talking about tens of thousands, because we have heard that 25,000 were already processed through UAE, 10,000 in Qatar. You now mentioned Germany and Albania. Are there tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions? Is there a projected number to this enormous migration?
The number that we received was around 50,000 that are still for process.
50,000.
Yes, this includes government people who work with the U.S. government and their families.
Pero kung 50,000, yun din ang hinihingi sa Pilipinas. You mean to say 100%, yung buong 50,000, lahat babagsak sa Pilipinas?
Hindi naman.
Bakit na huminto yung UAE at yung Qatar? Ba't sila huminto? Bakit huminto yung US? Dati naman pinoprocess doon, nakatenga pa, 77,400. Bakit tumigil ang US? Bakit sila tumigil? Bakit bigla Pilipinas ang naisip?
Well, hindi naman naisip. Ang pagkaalam namin, they were asking other countries, and the Philippines is one of them because of the fact that we have this relationship with the United States. We're an ally, so they thought the Philippines could be a place where we could allow them to process their special immigrant visas.
The reason I ask, sir, is that UAE and Qatar are obvious processing areas because of their distance. And they're already doing this, 25,000 and 10,000. Why did they stop? Kung 50,000 na lang ang butal, kayang-kaya na nila idagdag doon. Nagkakaintindihan sila. Magkapareho sila sa kinakain, sa gawi, sa iba't ibang paninindigan at paniwala.
Well, pwede natin itanong sa kanila kung bakit biglang tinigil. Pero ang pagkalam ko, humingi sila ng tulong sa atin kung pwede nila i-process yung kanilang mga government employee, yung nagtrabaho sa kanila dito sa Pilipinas. As one of the many countries that they're asking for this.
Thank you. Yes, I'm not unwilling to help. Like all Filipinos, we have an open arms policy to all refugees throughout the world at any time. However, it appears to me that we are an unlikely candidate simply because napakalayo po natin. Parang inilalayo natin sila lalo, samantalang meron ng existing. Unang-una, kung babagsak rin sila sa US, bakit hindi nga ituloy-tuloy na lamang yung nandyan sa Virginia? Nahinto ba, since Washington DC is clearly by Virginia, have they stopped processing people in the National Convention Center, please?
I don't think so. I think they're still processing a number of them as of now.
I I see, because I understand from press releases that with the Operation Allies Refuge, Operation Allies Welcome, and the other enduring welcome efforts of the United States, the Biden administration announced that Afghan nationals in October 1 of 2022 will no longer be able to enter the U.S. under the Humanitarian Parole Authority. So tinigil sa US, samantalang ito empleyado ng US. Bakit tayo ang magiging sangkalan? Yun lang ang tanong ko.
Well, pwede natin itanong sa kanila kung bakit sa atin na. Pero as I said, isa tayo sa mga ibang mga bayan na humingi sila ng tulong kung pwede idaan doon bago nila dalhin sa Amerika.
Would you know if Thailand, our good neighbor and ASEAN partner, which is a treaty ally of the United States, has been requested by the United States to process Afghan employees as well?
I am not sure, Madam Chair.
I have been told that no request was ever made to Thailand. Why only the Philippines?
Well, as I said, they approached us in October and we said that we will consider it and we're going to study the matter. But we have not asked them why you picked us. The only reason they told us is because they felt that the Philippines was an ally that they could ask this particular favor, perhaps if you want to call it that. And they have brought it up to the highest levels in our government, including the president.
Okay, so if the US is unable or unwilling to temporarily house their Afghan employees in US soil, why don't they go to US territories such as Guam, Puerto Rico, Guantanamo? Secretary Manalo, you're raising your hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thought I would just say a few words on this issue on the why the U.S. might have approached us. Of course, we can only surmise, but what I gather is aside from being a partner, the treaty ally, I think they also are aware of our long tradition of providing humanitarian assistance. So that's why they have approached us. On the
To refugees, Secretary, you
Well-
already said these are not refugees.
well, the humanitarian aspect. And on the issue of why they're not being processed in the United States is actually these are SIV applicants and not applying for refugees. I mean, they're not refugees as such. And as we understood from the United States, their laws require that this category, SIV applicants, have to be processed in third countries, not in the United States. So perhaps those could be the reasons why, in fact, that's one of the reasons why they approached us on this. Now-
Pero magulo rin sa atin yan, di ba? Kasi under our immigration rules, and the BI is here to confirm, Norman, please, Afghan nationals are Category 1 nationals. They should first obtain Philippine visa before entry in Islamabad. Isn't that correct? So that puts into question their status if they remain in the Philippines as well. So that also puts into question our ability to impose our laws on all those in our territory. And we'll sacrifice all that simply because we'd like to accommodate a favor that could probably be better served elsewhere. Just a question.
That's why we have to be very clear, if we were to accede to this, that our laws would be followed. And if they have a stay of 30 to 59 days, for example, in accordance with our category A, then we would have to apply that strictly, and we would have to make that very clear to the United States that they could not stay longer than they are allowed, according to Philippine law, because of their specific category. And that's the point we would, if we ever get into negotiations with the U.S. formal, we would have to insist on these points.
Yes, Secretary, this is a real problem because of the change in strategy in the United States and the refusal now to extend humanitarian parole authorities. we are not certain they will actually receive their special immigrant visas. And the delay, as we know, has been tremendous and admitted by the Americans themselves. Sadly, unfortunately, the Humanitarian Parole Authority is one that myself and my family utilize, so I'm inordinately familiar with the same. It guarantees no residence, it guarantees no rights or any other abilities under that status, nor any immigrant or other privileges. So it's not something I would wish on anyone. Okay. There's a further question. You said that rigorous security vetting has already been done by the United States government. What about the Philippine government? Are we able to undertake rigorous security vetting and background checks? Will we be able to go over their employment records and all their family details from Islamabad through our very meager embassy deployment out there that covers Kabul at this point?
Madam Chair,
Secretary Chadoro, please.
if the category would be former U.S. government employees, then the job is much easier because they would have been vetted in the first place before they would have been hired. Admittedly, there are problems with their family members, if ever, who were not vetted. And that is one of the issues that we would want to go through. What kind of vetting did they go through in the first place? Which I personally, I wonder if the other agencies, what standard they will apply.
Yes, the NBI has questioned that, so have some papers from the PNP questioning our ability to actually vet the incoming Afghans.
What we are certain, Madam Chair, is once they arrive in country, then we can, of course, take precautions as to what they may do. Because, for example, like even in voice calls or whatnot, we can have them sign certain waivers, like when
I'm so in